Hello everybody and happy Friday! I have just enough light left right now to film something quick, so I'm going to do a very quick Friday reads. Also, I am very tired and very sleepy, and I feel like I'm talking extremely slowly. It's going to be an early night for me. But some things, it's going to be a busy weekend, and I thought I should let you know about news and what I am currently reading, because I'm still really far behind on doing wrap-ups of what I've read so far this year. So first bit of news is that if you are eagerly anticipating the return of the BookTube SFF Awards, that will be happening very soon. You should keep an eye out for announcement videos that nominations are open, and I will link the BookTube SFF Awards website down below in the description if you have no idea what that is and you're curious. And secondly, if you are at all interested in crafts and chatting and things like that, a group of us are going to be doing monthly Stitch and Bitch live shows, and the next one is going to be here on my channel on Sunday at 1 p.m. Central. I will leave the link to that down below as well. All of the time zones are in the description. So basically, a bunch of us got very excited by the idea of like book blankets over on Twitter. It was a huge discussion. And so we're all working on like reading tracker projects, crochet, knitting, sewing, etc. So it's going to be me, Bree, Chelsea, Claire, Rhea, and Diana. I feel like I'm missing somebody. I think that's everybody. And we will just be talking about our projects as we're working on them, and then anything else that we feel like chatting about, bookish, fandom related, and so on. It'll be a good time, and hopefully you come over and join us for a little bit of it. And with that, let's move on to the ridiculously large number of things that I am reading or plan on picking up soon. I recently discovered some audiobooks of a few of the older science fiction titles I have on my physical TBR, so I've been listening to those. I've had a lot of time to listen to audiobooks this week. I've been doing a lot of rote things at work and stuff like that, and I'm very distracted. There's a dog loving on me right now. Anyway, yeah, I've been listening to a lot of audiobooks. I've gotten through 2 books by Theodore Sturgeon, which were both interesting. Today I finished up Time is the Simplest Thing, which is the first one from this omnibus, and I'm currently listening to the last one I have to read in here, which is called A Choice of the Gods. I didn't really like Time is the Simplest Thing. I was very bored, but I've just begun on A Choice of Gods, and we'll see what I think about it. It seems to be one of those far future things where most of the Earth has gone back to a sparse population, a very agrarian, very pastoral science fiction, which is what Samak is known for, and there are robots. So we'll see where that goes. My other audiobook, which I've had paused while I've been blitzing through science fiction audiobooks, is The Information by James Glick. This is the 3rd book I've read by Glick. I've read his book Time Travel, which was so-so. Last year I read his biography of Richard Feynman, which was really, really good. And The Information, I think, is totally up there with his book on Feynman. I think it's kind of like the thing that Glick is known for. So The Information is about the concept of information and how we started thinking about information as information, something that you can compress and encode and send, and that has bandwidth and all of that. And I'm only a little ways into it so far, but it's been very interesting to listen to. So I will probably be listening to a lot of that in the coming weeks as I work on more crochet projects and stuff. My ebook right now that I'm reading on my Kindle is Embers of War by Gareth L. Powell. This is a book that Elizabeth from Books and Pieces has recently raved about. I have just read the first couple of chapters and I'm already hooked. I'm really enjoying just the style of it and the way it's written. So I have high hopes for this. And apparently I've never read anything by Gareth Powell before. How has that happened? I think I'm going to really enjoy this. I think it's the first in a projected trilogy, and I will definitely be seeking out more things by Powell after this. And speaking of Elizabeth, she and I are going to be buddy reading short fiction, like on the weekends and stuff, trying to hold each other accountable to meeting our short fiction reading goals, I think. So I will be reading some stories from Tor.com with her over this weekend, which will be the last things I need to read to meet my monthly goal of reading a certain number of magazine issues and individual stories. So I've done very, very well on that goal so far. 1 month of the year in. And then a couple of other things. I am almost done with How to Behave Badly in Elizabethan England by Ruth Goodman. This is her newest book. Her previous two were How to Be a Victorian and How to Be a Tudor, and I enjoyed both of those. I really recommend them if you're interested in those time periods. And this one, How to Behave Badly, is an excellent follow-up to read after How to Be a Tudor. It really gets more into the nitty-gritty of individual behavior and social expectations and how you could express yourself or insult people or make them uncomfortable. A lot about language, bodily behavior, like body language, and all that sort of stuff, differing between the sexes and social classes. And the information is just really fascinating. The only thing that's bugging me about this is that the angle on this is how to behave badly. So basically Goodman tells you what the rules were, and then she tells you how you could effectively break them to behave badly, maybe without getting in a lot of trouble. And that's interesting, but the book definitely doesn't stay consistent to that throughout. It would probably be better if it was just a straight explanation of the rules, like her previous books were, but it's still very interesting and very entertaining. And then the other two things which I've just started reading, I have Raft by Stephen Baxter. This is going to be so interesting because it's set like humans in another universe where the rules of physics are different, but they don't seem to know that, or they don't remember the universe they came from. It's a fascinating concept. And then I have started on this short story collection by Terry Pratchett called A Blink of the Screen. I had this for a little while, about a year, and I started reading it because I'm getting back into my reread of Discworld. I'll talk about that in a second. And I needed to read one of the short stories about death. And then I just went to the beginning of it and said, I'm gonna read this collection now, the whole thing. About half of it is just unrelated short stories, and then the second half are Discworld short stories. And I gather that this is probably all of the short fiction that Pratchett ever wrote. He didn't write a lot of it, he was more of a novelist. I take that back actually. I've obviously read other short story collections by him, a lot of things that he wrote when he was very young and working at a newspaper, but this is, you know, later in his career, I think. What else was I gonna say? Discworld! Last weekend I decided to jump back into my rereads of Discworld and of Diana Wynne Jones's Chrestomanci series. Both of these, like I reread The Lives of Christopher Chant by Jones last year, and then I stalled out on continuing with the Chrestomanci books, but I've continued that. I read Conrad's Fate, and then in the next couple of days I'll probably start Charmed Life, which is the next one. I'm reading them in internal chronological order, which is not publication order, and I think is also not Jones's recommended reading order, but I'm a purist. Sometimes I like to read things in internal chronological order. And oh man, I missed reading Diana Wynne Jones. She is probably up there in like my top 5 favorite authors ever. She defined my childhood. Even my teenage years, I was still reading her right up until her death, basically, and I love her books so much. So I'm really looking forward to getting to Charmed Life. It's a very short book and I'll get through it in a day probably. And then on Discworld, I decided that I'm going to tackle most of Discworld by going through the sub-series. So I have started on rereading the Death sub-series, and I'm reading that also in kind of chronological order. So I read Mort, which is quite interesting. I remembered almost nothing about that book. And then the next one I have to read is Reaper Man, I think. I pulled it out, so I've got it on my nightstand so I remember which one it is. And I'm also very excited about that. there's so much joy in revisiting authors and books that you just know that you love. It's a shoo-in, you know? So that has me very excited. I have no idea how much reading I will pack in over the weekend, though. I'm going to be reading short stories with Elizabeth, and then everything else is pretty much secondary because I'm going to be busy. I'm going to like a yarn crafting store on Saturday. I've been looking forward to it all week. It looks like it's going to be an amazing store and I need to buy some yarn. And of course Sunday I'll be doing the live show and everything, so it's gonna be a busier than normal weekend for me. And with that, I am truly starting to lose the light now. I need to go make dinner, eat dinner, and then do my grocery shopping because I've run out of milk and I'm almost out of my favorite black tea, and basically the world is ending. So to the store, even though it's cold and icy and dark. Yeah, I'm very serious about my tea. So I hope that you have a great weekend planned, and I will talk to you again very soon, and until then, bye.